Hello everyone and welcome. Happy Christmas. Welcome to Christmas Eve in my home in the city, to my messy kitchen here in Saskatoon. So yes, so happy Christmas. It's Christmas Eve and I just thought I would share maybe a recipe or two that I always enjoy making for Christmas, for the Christmas season. So here we are. So I'm going to start with my grandmother's layered jello salad. Yeah, jelly salads, yeah, they're definitely a throwback to like the 70s and probably early 80s, but it's one of those things that when I made it for the first time a few years ago, it probably hadn't been made since whenever the last time my grandmother had made it. And it brought back so many memories. It tasted exactly the way I remembered it tasting, and it was the flavor of Christmas for me. You know, if Christmas had a flavor, it would be this salad because it just had that memory attachment to it. So basically, what you need is a pack of green jello, a pack of yellow jello, lemon jello, and a package of red jello. So I'm just going to start. So I'm going to start with the green. Now it is a layered salad, so it's a green, white, and red layer. I don't think it matters which layer you start with as long as the white layer is in the middle. So I am going to start with the green layer. So basically you're just making the jello, kind of following the instructions. So I'm just going to empty the packet into my bowl here. It is really nice if you can use a glass bowl so that you can see the colors. So the recipe, the basic recipe in the box calls for 1 cup of boiling water, and I've already boiled my kettle, so I'm just going to pour so I can see this. 1 cup of boiling water. Add that in. Just grab a spoon to stir it. So this bottom layer has also got pineapple in it. So you do have to use canned pineapple, like either crushed or tidbits of pineapple. You cannot use fresh pineapple because it will prevent the jello from setting. So I'm just going to stir this until it all dissolves. Now with your tin of crushed pineapple, so that I've got mine here, what you do is you drain off the juice, but you keep the juice. And so that 2nd cup of cold water, instead of using water, you use the juice from the pineapple. So I've kind of drained it off. I'm just going to pour it out here. Okay, so it doesn't quite make 1 cup, so I'm just going to add some water to it. There we go. And then I'll just add that. Now it's a really nice salad. I love it. It's beautiful and it tastes nice, but it's one of those things that you definitely have to make the day before because it's layered. You have to wait for each layer to set before you go on to the next one. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, what you have to do is let this cool down, let it start to thicken, and sort of just before it really starts to set, that's when you add your pineapple so that the pineapple ends up nicely distributed instead of just sinking to the bottom kind of thing. So I'm just going to stir that around. There's a bit there, and then we'll come back when it's ready for the next layer. Okay, so the jello is starting to thicken up a little bit, so I'm going to add my pineapple into the green jello. Now, crushed pineapple, I'm using tidbits, but crushed pineapple would probably work better. I actually couldn't find the crushed at the store. They were sold out, so tidbits is. So I'm just going to put that all in there. There we go, give it a stir so it's nicely evenly distributed throughout the green jello. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this I'm going to cover it and then put it in the fridge so that it can finish setting. And then once it's set, we can go on to the next layer. Okay, so our first layer of our jelly salad has finally set. So I am going to start the next layer. So the next layer is sort of the white layer, and you need some yellow jello, lemon jello, and we need 8 ounces of cream cheese. So what you're supposed to do is you basically blend the cream cheese. Get that going, get it softened up. There we go. And then what you do is you add your jello powder to the cream cheese. Just like that. Alright, so the next step is to add 1 cup of boiling water to our lemon and our jello and cream cheese mixture. We'll just add it slowly so it can all get mixed in. Okay, there we go. I'm just going to turn this up a little bit so it can get mixed. Mix in a little bit better. I might actually do it, maybe stir it by hand a bit. There we go. I'm just going to lift this up and give that a quick stir by hand. Just to make sure that it's all mixed in. There we go. So it's all good. So what we need to do now is leave this to cool. And once again, we need to let it get to the point where it's starting to set, but not totally set. And then at that point, we will add our Cool Whip into the mixture. Okay, so our jello layer mixture here with the cream cheese and the lemon jello, it's starting to thicken up a bit, so I am going to add the next ingredient, which is the Cool Whip. So you want to add the whole thing. Now you can add it in stages, and then you want to fold it in to the cream cheese mixture. There we go. It can take a little bit to get it all incorporated, but you just kind of have to work at it. You don't want to overwork it because you don't want it to kind of be flat. You want to be nicely mixed in, but not flat. And it will be kind of lumpy. I haven't found a good way to mix it in and not have it be a little bit lumpy, so that's okay. Having lumps is perfectly fine. So I'm just going to try and fold this in so it's all nicely incorporated. Just like that, getting there. Like I said, it can take a little bit. But oh, this salad is wonderful. There's so many memories attached to the flavor of this salad. You know, I have such, good memories of when I was a kid in the 70s, and, Christmas morning. Christmas breakfast would have been here at my parents' house. And it would have been everybody, the whole family. We'd have at least sometimes 15 people or more around the kitchen table for breakfast, and then we would open gifts. And then supper would be at my grandparents' house, and they had a teeny tiny little house. And the only room that was big enough to set up a table, a makeshift table that was big enough for everybody, was in the basement. And it was pretty tight even then. It was pretty crowded. But we had good times. We had good times, we had laughter, we had good food. And that's kind of what this salad brings back, are those happy times. Okay, so this is all incorporated. I'll just show you that. It's all been incorporated. So now we put this on top of our green layer. go, scrape the bowl. I always scrape my bowl really well. It always bugs me when I watch those cooking shows and you see these so-called chefs who don't scrape their bowl. But I guess on a cooking show you don't need to. You don't need to do that maybe, I don't know. But all right, we're just gonna smooth this all out into a nice even layer. Just like that. It's all nice and even. There we go. And then we're going to put it in the fridge so it can fully set. And once it's fully set, we'll add the next layer. Okay, so our middle layer has finally set, so I am going to start working on the top layer. So the top layer, the red layer, is just red jello, and it's just prepared according to the instructions on the box. So 1 packet of jello, red jello. Doesn't matter if it's raspberry or strawberry or cherry, whatever your favorite is. And then 1 cup of hot water. And there we go, 1 cup of hot water. And then we stir it around to get it all to dissolve. Like that, almost there. And once the crystals have all dissolved, we will add 1 cup of cold water. One cup of cold water. Stir it up, mix it all around. Now, you do need to let this cool down before you put it on top. If it's too warm, it will melt the layer below it, and then you won't have that nice distinction between the layers. So I'm just going to give this a few minutes to cool down, and then we'll pour our last layer on top. Okay, so our red jello is cooled down enough, and I am just going to pour it on top of that middle layer. There we go. Now my bowl is just barely big enough to fit the jello, but it fits. Now I am not going to try to move this right away. I'm going to let it firm up a bit before covering it and then putting it in the fridge. And it can stay in the fridge until tomorrow, till we're ready to have it with our supper, with our Christmas supper. So this is my grandmother's Christmas jellied salad. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you try to make it. It's for me, it's a wonderful flavor and a wonderful part of Christmas. So yeah, so I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so welcome to part 2 of In the Hearth on Christmas Eve, or on the Hearth-fire on Christmas Eve. So the second recipe that I wanted to share with you today is for tourtière. So a tourtière, it is a French-Canadian dish, and basically it is a meat pie. So I've got some hot oil, some oil warming up in the pan here. I've got some onion and some garlic. I'll basically just read the recipe out to you, and then we'll go along and make it. So this calls for equal parts of ground beef and ground pork, so basically 1 pound each. And it says to saute the onions and garlic in the hot oil until translucent, and then add the ground beef and pork and cook until no longer pink. And then you add mashed potatoes and some spices. And then you mix up some beef broth and some flour, and then you pour that into the meat mixture until it thickens, and then you put it into a pie plate with pastry, and you cover it, and then you bake it. So, so I've already pre-made my pastry. Now I've used the recipe on the Tender Flake box because it works for me, but you can use store-bought pastry if you want. The Tender Flake, it does make a fairly big ball of dough. which is fine because what I do is I cut it in half, and this half I'm going to use to make my tortilla, and the other half I'm going to use to make an onion and apple galette. But whatever method you choose to use, you do need to have enough pastry to have a bottom crust and a top crust for it, at minimum a 9-inch pie plate. So there we go. All right, so my oil's probably hot, so I'm going to put my onions, oh yeah, they're sizzling, onions and garlic into the pan. And we'll grab a utensil somewhere, and we'll just give that a stir. So this is another recipe that, it's not an old family recipe, but it was one that we kind of later adopted because, you know, we had it at somebody's house, a friend's house, and we thought it was really good, so we got the recipe and started making it ourselves on Christmas Eve. It is a dish that is usually served on Christmas Eve, but really you could make it any time of year if you wanted to. There we go. So we've had some really, really cold weather here. It's just been brutally cold this past week. We woke up in Meadow Lake yesterday morning, Friday morning, and it was literally minus 40 degrees Celsius. Yeah, it's dangerously cold, and when it's that cold, you don't really want to venture out. I did have to make the drive here to Saskatoon, but I kind of tried to wait till it warmed up at least a little bit before hitting the highway. So yes, we've definitely been hit hard with some cold temperatures, but it's supposed to moderate next week. So hopefully, maybe going into the new year, we'll have some nice weather. We've got more snow in the forecast for Christmas Day. Hopefully, it won't be too bad. But yeah, it's been a long, cold winter already, and we're at least we're halfway through, right? You know, the solstice was just 3 days ago, so it means, you know, the sun's going to start, you know, setting a little bit later, rising a little earlier, so our days will be slowly getting a little bit longer, and hopefully with that, maybe some slightly warmer temperatures. Okay, so my onions and garlic are looking nice here. And I am just going to add my mix of ground beef and ground pork into the pan. Alright, so if you'll just excuse me while I go wash my hands. Now I will be draining off some of the fat off of the meat as it cooks, so no worries. As if it looks too fatty, I will be draining that off, but it's looking good, cooking nice. Okay, so I've just finished draining the meat. It's all nicely cooked, and the next step is to add 1 cup of mashed potatoes. So you can use leftover mashed potatoes if you've got them. I did not have any, so I just cooked up a couple of small potatoes earlier and made a little bit of mashed potato. So I'm just going to add that into my meat. There we go. We'll give that a stir to incorporate that. Okay, and then it also calls for some spices. So it is basically two tablespoons of cinnamon, 1 tablespoon of ground clove, and 1 tablespoon of ground allspice. So I'm just going to add that. So a little bit different flavor for a meat pie. Definitely they're Christmas flavor, Christmas spices. So we'll get that all worked in and incorporated. Okay, so this looks really good. So the next step is to add the beef broth and the flour. So it says to add half a cup of beef broth with a half a teaspoon of flour. So there we go. Now I am using store-bought broth, but if you've got some homemade stuff, by all means, I encourage you to use it. I didn't have any ready or available, so I'm not going to use that. So I just had to buy some. So I'm just mixing up the flour and the broth. Okay, and then we'll just pour that in. Okay, and I think I'm just going to turn that down a bit. Seems a bit hot. And then we'll just give that a stir. And once it looks like it's thickened, then we can take it off the heat. There we go, just like that. That's awesome, looking good. Okay, so I've taken the meat off the heat while I roll out my pastry, and I've got my oven starting to heat. So as we roll everything out and put everything together, it should be ready by the time we're done. Okay, that looks good. Line my pie shell here. Pie plate. So my pie plate is about 10 inches, so it's a little bit bigger than a 9-inch pie pan. So use what you got, right? But I've got more than enough dough here for this. I'm just gonna cut the excess off. That. There we go. And we'll put our filling. Next up is to put the filling into the pie plate. Let's hope I don't spill it everywhere. Okay, so I filled my pie plate, and I'm just working on the top crust, which is looking good here. Lift the pastry up. Go and put over top. Voila, like that. Lower, there we go. I'm just gonna just wet the edge a little bit with a bit of water underneath. That, oops. There we go, and then I usually just pinch like this. It's the way my grandmother taught me how to do it, was just to pinch. Or you can use a fork and just seal that. It's kind of flipped out there. All right, there we go. Look at that. And then we'll just cut off the excess. That looks like a beautiful meat pie we got here. Whoops. There we go. Oops. Okay, I am just going to put some ventilation slits in here so that steam can come out. Just a couple of lines here. Okay, and then the last step is to brush the top with some egg wash. go, all done, and it's ready to go in the oven. So my oven is preheated to 375, and it needs to go in the oven for about 45 minutes. Look at that. Beautiful tortilla is done. And there it is, our tortilla, fresh from the oven, hot. It smells absolutely wonderful and amazing. The best thing for Christmas Eve. Thank you everyone for joining me around the hearth fire on this wonderful Christmas Eve. I want to wish everyone a very happy and Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to you. I hope you have a wonderful holiday, wonderful day tomorrow, Christmas Day. Whether you're celebrating Christmas or not, you know what? Choose to be happy, because there's so many reasons right now to celebrate. So happy holidays, happy New Year, and we'll see you again in the new year. Cheers. Until next time, take care.